Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I'm going to finish off a brief 3-film miniseries on a genre that I'm quite fond of, which I call Hollywood stories. So I started off with Day of the Locusts from 1975, then The Last Tycoon from 1976, and today we're going to talk about Barton Fink from 1991. All these films share a similar time period. It's between 1938 and 1941. Barton Fink is set in 1941. And they both do concern two different elements. These other two films, The Day of the Locust being sort of the seedy side of Hollywood and the broken dreams part of Hollywood. The Last Tycoon centering on a Hollywood mogul, closely associated with Irving Thalberg. So we get both of these themes here, and we also get a similar aspect of as far as Day of the Locust, we get a writer, the writer's plight in Hollywood, where the writer, even famous writers, were not valued. Well, they were valued; they got paid a lot of money. But they were treated as if they, if they were sort of like servants of the mogul, and he controlled, he owned their minds, and he would pit writers against writers. He would assign writers to a certain movie, and without that writer knowing, there was other people working on the same project at the same time. So, and in Day of the Locust, we had it was based on a novel by Nathaniel West, and Last Tycoon from F. Scott Fitzgerald. So two famous novelists who had to go to Hollywood to pay the bills. Nathaniel West probably wasn't as famous as F. Scott Fitzgerald, to be sure. In Barton Fink, we have and Barton Fink is written and directed by the Coen Brothers, and this is John Turturro starring. And Turturro is playing a left-wing Broadway playwright. This is the 1930s, the intimations of the group theater, very left-wing theater group that focused on the common man. They were going to make, to produce plays that had something to do with how the common man lived in America. And Barton Fink has a big Hollywood success in the first scene of the film, but he's lured away to Hollywood. His agent says, look how much money they're offering you. You can spend a couple years out there, get financially stable, come back to New York and write these important plays that you really want to. So he comes to Hollywood for the bucks. This and Barton Fink is very much modeled on Clifford Odets, who did come out of the group theater, did come to Hollywood. He had a fairly successful career in Hollywood with Golden Boy, and he wrote many scripts, The Big Knife with Jack Palance and Rod Steiger out in the 1950s. So he in his appearance is somewhat Clifford Odetian, but it's also, you know, evokes Jack Nance and Eraserhead. It's said to be modeled on Charles S. Kaufman, a very successful Broadway playwright. John Turturro, in an interview, there's some really good interviews on this Kino release that's, I think, came out about 7 years ago. He said his hair kept growing as the movie went along. His hair kept getting higher and higher. So he comes to Hollywood. Capitol Pictures, a fictional Hollywood studio. He comes to see the mogul who runs the studio, and this is Michael Lerner, who is he looks just like Louis B. Mayer. In fact, I think he did a one-man show about Louis B. Mayer. In his interview, he shows us a whole bookcase of books about MGM and Mayer. And he plays this part hilariously. This is like a Preston Sturges kind of character who just talks at extremely fast-paced. It's hard to tell what exactly he wants, but he assigns Barton to a wrestling movie. And Barton has no idea what a wrestling movie is or what's expected of him, and the mogul tells him, just give it that Barton Fink feeling. He has no idea what the Barton Fink feeling is. So he stays, instead of going where most of these well-heeled, well-paid screenwriters live, that he wants to live with the common man. So he goes to a really seedy hotel. It doesn't appear to have any inhabitants in it. In fact, we don't really see anybody. We only see one other resident, but we see a lot of shoes down the corridor. That's the only sign that there's people actually staying there. And so he goes to his hotel room, and it's tremendously seedy. There's no view. It's got a spring mattress that's squeaky. The wallpaper peels off the wall. There's a concept of heat throughout this movie. There's a picture on the wall. The only sight of any kind of humanity in this hotel room is a picture, kind of standard kind of picture of a woman sitting on a beach and gazing out into the ocean on a sunny day. This picture will play a big part in the finale of the movie. So we have, and this hotel set is just fantastic. The lobby, Steve Buscemi plays Chet, the hotel manager, the only person there really, in this great lobby, and then he goes up in an elevator. They have an elevator man who appears catatonic, and then we have the corridor, and the corridor is just fantastic. It does evoke The Shining. I think it's meant to evoke The Shining. It's a fabulous set, this corridor, and then the room as the film becomes more or less hallucinatory. We're certainly reminded of some of Roman Polanski's movies, especially The Tenant. So we do meet the man who lives next door, the only other residents we see, and he's played by John Goodman. And so he represents the common man, and they strike up a friendship. But Barton is so self-important, he's humorless, he doesn't really understand the common man. He has these great ideals that goes off on rants, and when he tells John Goodman, "No, you're the common man. Oh, I could tell you some stories," but Barton just goes off on his. He really isn't interested in the common man. He's interested in the life of the mind, the bizarre twists and turns of the life of the mind. And this is to like the picture. This phrase, "the life of the mind," will come back. It will come back to haunt both Barton and the audience. So it is a satire very much of intellectuals, the idea of low art, of the movies, of a B movie, like a Wellsbury wrestling movie. But these intellectuals don't really understand the common man, and what are their dreams, and their common man is ennobled. This is the time of the rise of fascism, where much of the common man aligns themselves with fascism, aligns themselves with pure evil. So it's not a clear-cut case here at all. There's no ennobling of anybody in the Coen Brothers world. So this writer's block leads, we see Barton, he just can get a couple sentences out on his typewriter, his Underwood typewriter. I once owned an Underwood typewriter. So he's told by his producer to seek out another writer, Bill Mayhew, who's working on such a film, to give him some ideas of how to write a script, a wrestling movie script, which is all formula, and Barton just can't understand formula. And Bill Mayhew, played by John Mahoney, and he is an absolute image of William Faulkner. And William Faulkner did come to Hollywood during this era, but this character, Bill Mayhew, is a big disappointment because he's a raving drunk, which Faulkner was as well. But he befriends Faulkner's secretary, played by Judy Davis, hoping that she will give him some direction on how to write a wrestling movie. So Barton, and then the movie in the final third of the film becomes totally hallucinatory. What is real, what isn't, what is real, what seems to be real is quite disturbing. As Barton goes through his sort of trial, his trial by fire, literally in this film, as events become more bizarre. The Coen Brothers character most of the time has to suffer, has to go through a period of suffering, has to merge out of this suffering and into some sort of understanding of who they are and what they have been through. Michael Lerner in his interview, he really, I think, because he really puts, I think, the focus that I feel with the Coen Brothers movies into very understandable terms, because Barton Fink is a film you can interpret in all different ways, especially the ending. What is it all about? What is it supposed to mean? I've never been a big fan of close readings of movies, and boy, you can find some really very incisive moment-to-moment readings of this film. But the Coen Brothers have always said, you know, it's all instinct. They're not, you know, saying this means this means that, and then it leads to this that means that. So Michael Lerner says that the Coen Brothers are very much part of the Jewish culture, and in which they are creating fables, and so these are fables that dwell on the mystery of life, the mystery of human behavior, the mystery of human events. Can there be a God who's actually orchestrating all these events that we go through? So they don't actually have to have, these fables don't actually have to have a moral, but they are indicative of this test of characters, of their main characters, and what they're like when they come out on the other side, and what they've been through, and the sheer wonder of what we all go through. Of course, in Barton, we don't all go through what Barton Fink goes through in this movie, thankfully. But there must be suffering, and there must be a sense of humor about it all. And this is the dark comedy of the Coen Brothers as they look at Hollywood. And this look at Hollywood is one of almost awe. What is this place? It's like a fairy tale world. And it's a wonder, because all these films, these three films, and most films about Hollywood are very downbeat. They're writers sort of getting their revenge on their experiences in Hollywood and how undervalued they were and how ridiculous all these movies are. What's so surprising about that is all these movies have endured. The Hollywood studios were making some really good movies. How did this happen? That's a fable in itself. So the production values here, it's all Coen Brothers movies, the details, there's so much to look at, like the bell that summons Chet at the front desk of the hotel. It rings and then it echoes all until Chet comes, which is, it seems like in a full minute you can still hear vagueness of this echoing bell. And then when Chet comes, he puts his finger on the bell in order to stop it. But there's so many details, that reward multiple viewings of this film. And of course, you can always have your own interpretation of these kind of films, especially the ending. Now, this did get some, before we talk about the reviews, this is the first Coen Brothers movie with Roger Deakins. They had worked with Barry Sonnenfeld in their first 3 movies. He went on to a directing career of his own. So they brought in Roger Deakins, and he films most of the rest of the Coen Brothers. So this film looks outstanding. This looks great on Blu-ray. And then Carter Burwell's music. There's a soundscape like the bell, the echoing bell, and there's all kinds of noises that we hear that add to the eeriness of this hotel in particular. But then there is some music, and it's very evocative and very beautiful, as you would expect from Carter Burwell. So the film was a flop. financially, but it went to the Cannes Film Festival. It was bought by the rights, European rights were bought by a French producer, I think actually invested in the movie as well. And he got it into the competition at Cannes, and lo and behold, it not only won Best Picture, it won Best Director, and it won Best Actor for Turturro. The only time that had ever happened at Cannes, so they had to change the rules, so if one film could only win 2 awards. Now, Roman Polanski, ironically enough, in a Coen Brothers world, irony rules. He was the head of the jury at Cannes that year, and he saw, as everybody did, very obvious references to his own movies, and he was very much behind giving 3, not 1, but 3 awards to this film. And it did get good reviews in the U.S. Vincent Canby, Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars. But the Coen Brothers were sort of a critical success. Miller's Crossing, I guess, might have been a success. I don't think Blood Simple or Raising Arizona, they might have been moderate successes, but it really wasn't until The Big Lebowski, I guess that's the most favored film in the Coen Brothers world, and of course they would get Oscars for No Country for Old Men. But I love this movie. When I saw it so many times when it first came out, and when it first was on DVD and streaming or cable, I guess in those days, and it's a film that really rewards rewatching. There's something so mysterious in this crazy fable. Okay, so thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.